Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. Today, we're going to go into this is going to be an interesting story. Two-part story, so to speak. The first one is about purpose. And the next one is, this is kind of crazy, but listen to what I'm about to say. A marriage contract. I've heard of all kind of contracts, but imagine a contract that you sit down and you talk with your future husband and you map out when you're going to be a mother. And your life is so aligned with this contract that you basically carry this on to generation to generation. And through this contract, you begin to understand the main word here that we all need to understand in life, our purpose. Without further ado, let's welcome this beautiful young lady. I be Tarzan, you be Jane Morales to the show. How you doing, baby girl?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show and get ready to share with us a beautiful story. Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about you. You definitely have a Puerto Rican type accent. So I tell me a little bit about you. Who actually is Miss Morales?
Well, my name, as you mentioned, is Jane Morales. I was born and raised in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. I have a sister where I'm staying right now because I came to visit for some work that I had to do. And I was raised by two amazing parents. My mom, may she rest in peace. She was pretty much our mentor, and my father was around. They were amazing parents. They raised us to be open-minded, to be human beings, respectful human beings, being compassionate, and really seeing other people as well. I come from a very strict home, but they were fun at the same time. They were strict, cool parents, which is what we are with our sons right now. And they did raise us, to have goals in life. We became professional ballet dancers at a very young age, which we enjoyed very much, and still to this day we love. That's one of our passions, ballet. And then my father always knew, because every summer we would travel. And by the time I graduated high school, we had traveled to 32 countries. That was one of his missions with us, to see the world. We didn't live in Manchester or anything like that, but pretty much that was part of their plan, to show us the world. And then to send us off to college. There are great universities here, where my father is a chemical engineer. My mother was an accountant, and they went to the University of Puerto Rico. But they wanted us to fly, and go and learn. So they kind of put us in the road to go out to the U.S. For college. So my sister, yes.
Not to cut you off, I'm going to ask you a question real quick so we can get a little bit more insight, because a lot of us don't have the pleasure to go to Puerto Rico. Only thing we know about Puerto Rico is the brochures and the advertisements to come and vacation there. But what's the advantages and disadvantages of Puerto Rico? Because I hear different stories from different people. Some say that they didn't. The economic situation is different, that you have to really be economically sound in order to enjoy the benefits of not only being on the island, but like you said, you became, you and your sister, professional ballerinas, which takes money. What's the advantages and disadvantages of growing up there?
I think it's a wonderful island. We are very special people. Humble, we're caring. I always say that the best thing, aside from the beaches that we have in Puerto Rico, are the people of Puerto Rico. We are incredibly giving. We are fun. We love music. It's my husband. He's from Spain. He's not from Puerto Rico. He tells me that whenever he comes here, he realizes that either everyone sings or plays an instrument. We have right now the number one artist in the world, Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, also known as Bad Bunny, is from Puerto Rico, which he just sold sold out 31 concerts right here in Puerto Rico. And it was on Amazon Live last Saturday, and he broke records of being the number one concert being streamed live.
So you're
all over
saying
the
that
world.
there's no disadvantages. You're saying there's no disadvantages living and growing up in Puerto Rico. Everybody is pretty much well-to-do and can thrive. Is what you're saying?
Well, I'm not here to talk about economics, but I'm here to talk about the people of Puerto Rico. One of the
Mhm.
great advantages is that the people of Puerto Rico are extremely special,
Right.
and I wouldn't change that for the world. When
Right.
you come here, you meet people on the street and they invite you to their homes.
Mhm.
That's something that I have not seen anywhere else. And they're
Right.
very real, the people of Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
And I think it's a happy place as well. Everyone has to find their path,
Mhm.
whether you are in an advantageous place or not. And there's people that, for example, my father, he didn't grow up in a privileged home, that barely had any food, and he became a chemical engineer because he
Right.
studied. He did well in high school, the way everyone should do, and he put himself through college. In one of the top universities in engineering in the world. Pretty much, it's here in Puerto Rico. So it's a matter of if you have drive, if you have a plan, if you have a purpose, if
Mhm.
you have perseverance, and if you stop dragging through life, which is the title of my book.
Now let's go back a little bit. You mentioned that you're a professional ballerina. How long have you been doing ballerina and dance and in the arts?
I was a professional ballerina for a long time. I started when I was like 4 years old, and I danced professionally all the way through college. And then I did musical theater. And then after my kids were born, I stopped for a while. And then I went back to classes. But that's part of being Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans are dancing all the time. So I pretty much dance everything. I go from ballet to any genre of dancing. But yes, I was a professional ballerina. My sister was too. I became professional at the age of 11.
That's wild. Like, how did you become a professional ballerina at the age of 11? I mean, seems like that would, I've seen dance and so forth here in the States. I mean, it seems like it would take a very, very, very long time to develop those skill sets, even for an adult. But you turned professional at 11 years old. How is that possible? I'm trying to understand.
I guess you have to be born with a natural talent first and foremost,
Yeah.
then very disciplined. I remember I would go when I joined, I was dancing and I was training. It was hours of training after school and then coming home to do homework. And then when I became professional, it was the same. It was a job. So you have to have a drive, and you have to know, and you have to have goals, and you have to know what you want to do. So I guess I've always developed an instinct. I did develop an instinct at a very young age to know what I wanted to do and to know kind of like to focus and how to get to places, and to decide when enough was enough, and I needed to switch paths, or to know, even going to a party and just being able to say, I don't want to stay here, So I think it's a combination of everything, whether you're a professional ballerina at the age of 11 or at the age of 20. It takes discipline, focus, perseverance, grit, and just a
Was
lot
this
of
something that
mental.
was this something that you and your sister always wanted to do? There was no other focus anywhere else. You knew right off the bat this is where you wanted to place your attention, is being a professional ballerina?
Well, that went on until I went to college. When I went to college, in high school, I made decisions to do, even though I was still dancing, I made decisions that I wanted to do other things in life. So I went on to get my bachelor's degree in Boston, and then I went on to do my master's degree. So I always, I was always aware of that to move on in life, that I always had to have goals. And to be able to follow them, I need to be aware of where I was at that moment in time, you know. So yeah, at the age of 11, yeah, I was extremely happy dancing all the
Yeah.
way throughout high school. But then goals change, and you evolve, and you say, do I want to be dancing all my life? No, I went to college, and I did a degree in business, and then I did my master's in broadcast journalism and documentary filmmaker making, and that took me on a different path. And
What were
you have to be aware and evolve through time.
right? What were there any setbacks for you? I mean, so far your life just sounds like your parents had you grounded from day one. Were there any setbacks for you?
In which terms setbacks? I don't know. I've always been aware of where I was. I've always been aware of my talents. So I think setbacks come along when you're not aware of who you are, where you are in that moment in time, or what are your talents. And if you don't have a list of goals in life, which is part of the reason I wrote the book, if you don't have a purpose, then you will have setbacks in life. I was always, and that's the second book I'm writing, I was always able to adapt with where I was in the time being, and adapt to be able to move on or stay, or if I was going to stay, how I could do better. So setbacks happen because of different circumstances. In my case, I don't think I had setbacks. I think I was very aware of where I was at the moment to be able to adapt and move on.
What did you put in place to always be aware? What tools did you put in place to always be aware?
When I was growing up, there were not as many distractions as we have right now. And I think being a ballerina really helped me a lot, because you have to be so focused in the moment, that I learned to be in the present moment at a very young age. And that's part of what I write in my book, that part of being aware of yourself and developing an instinct, which is extremely important to me. That's the most important tool that we need to have to guide us in life. I was able to develop that instinct at a very young age, because as a ballet dancer, I was able to live in the present moment and be aware always where I was in time. So when that came at a very young age, to be able to be aware, to be able to be focused, and to be able to know and understand where I need to be better, if I could be better, and how to adapt to the circumstances.
Give me a time where you had to use these skill sets to adapt to, and still wind up keeping your focus, and like you said, keeping everything, knowing what your purpose is. Give me an example.
I always say that when you're focused and you really know who you are, and really understand where you come from, and really love where you come from, you not necessarily have to love everything that happened to you, but understand yourself, and there's a reason for the road we travel. We are able to understand where we need to adapt. When I went from Puerto Rico, which is a Spanish speaking country, to Boston, I had to adapt. I remember I learned a lot. I learned English when I was pretty young, because in school I was able, but I wasn't speaking English all the time. I have an accent which I love, and I always say that an accent is a reason to talk to people, because they go, you have an accent. Where are you
Right.
from? Yeah, I speak more than one language, which
Wow.
is a great thing. So, arriving in Boston to me, that was, one of the places that I had to adapt, but in a good way, not adapt saying, oh, well, I don't have what I had in Puerto Rico. No, how do I adapt because I'm in Boston now to be a student to really add to myself and add to my life. I remember being in Harvard Square and some lady coming to me, and I think that was really funny, saying she was started kind of screaming. So time that was in the 80s, things haven't changed much. She
Right.
said to me, you're not black, you're not white, what are you? And I started laughing. Someone else would probably be gotten mad or upset or like scared or something. I started laughing. I said, I am Puerto Rican. and that question happened to me so many times because they would look at me or they would hear my accent and I would say I'm Puerto Rican. And I found so many uneducated people along the way that I ended up saying that I was an alien. So everything that could have made someone upset, I turned it into a moment to laugh, educate when I had the energy to educate, laugh, or make something up like saying, yeah, I'm an alien, because you would try to explain and people would understand.
What
But
were
that
they?
never
What were
stopped
they?
me.
What were they miseducated about when you arrived here? Like, what
Like,
were some of the
let's
things that you've encountered?
Um, even in college, I remember my roommates from Puerto Rico, because I grew up with them here. We would laugh because even college kid would ask us, where is Puerto Rico to start? I mean, these are
Right.
college kids going to a really good school. Where is Puerto Rico? So you speak a different language? Duh, yeah, we speak a different language. How did you get here? Like, what form of transportation?
Right.
Did you drive? Did you take a train? And at some point we started laughing and would say, no, we canoed all the way from Puerto Rico to Boston, you know? Yeah, I mean, we turn everything, the first time they ask, it's like a shock, but then they ask so many times that it became a joke, and, and pretty much we would have to educate a lot of people that Puerto Rico is an island. It's in the Caribbean. We are part of Latin America, but we're not South America, North America, or Central America. We're the Caribbean. We speak a different language and it's called Spanish. And we love our roots, we love our language, and we love the people that we are. So that was part of the education, but it was more like I love talking about where I came from and who I am, instead of making it something that would annoy me. On the contrary,
Right.
it gave me a chance to speak about me.
When did the shift change for you? You come over here. You come over to the United States. You go to Boston. You attend college. You educate the miseducated about your culture, where you come from. You're not doing ballet anymore. You decided to do a change in life. When did that happen, and what was the reason for that particular career that you got into, journalism?
Um, I was still dancing when I was in Boston. I was still taking classes with the Boston Ballet. So I was still dancing. I was doing musical theater. I was dancing in college as well. So I kept on dancing for many years. So after I did my master's at Boston University in broadcast journalism and documentary filmmaking. And I knew I wanted to combine the business and the arts somehow. When I grew up with a father that loved film, so he would take us to the movies all the time. And the only night we were allowed to stay up late was the night of the Oscars. So when I was 14 and I had to do a speech for my English class in public speaking, I did it on the Oscars and I wrote about the history. I put it down and then I gave my speech on the history of the Oscars. And I ended up, my last line was, and one day I will be at the red carpet. So move right along. Many years later, after I graduated, I started working with Telemundo Network in New York City, and I didn't think I was going to be a reporter, or I hadn't noticed that I was going to be a reporter. I thought I was going to be like an assistant producer or writer, and I was sent to the street to be a reporter. My first interview was with Henry Kissinger, and it was nerve wracking, but it was the beginning of something great. So I continued. After Telemundo, I went to Miami, and then I started working with NBC Network. NBC started a 24-hour news channel, and they needed people because that had a Spanish background, because it was a 24-hour news service in Spanish. It was the first one before CNN. It was 24 hours of news to all the Spanish-speaking cities in the U.S., all of Latin America, and the Caribbean. So I started working with them, and going down the line, I ended up becoming their entertainment news anchor. I had an entertainment news segment, and I ended up being the first within the U.S. for an American network, the first Spanish-speaking reporter live on the red carpets at the
Wow.
Oscars.
Wow. Congratulations
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. It was fun. It was like, fulfilling something that I always wanted to do. And I started when I was 14, and I said, and one day I'll be at the Oscars. So
you kind of like you kind of like had predestined your purpose. You knew exactly where you wanted to be at what time and so forth.
Exactly. I was very aware of my talents.
Right.
I knew I was not going to become a singer.
Right.
I did not want it to be an actress. People ask me, why didn't you? I never wanted to be an actress, but I knew what were my talents. I knew what I enjoyed, and I knew what I could do with my talents to make a career out of it.
When did you decide to write your book? And tell me a little bit about your book and how that all unfolded for you.
When I had our first son, I really wanted to spend time with my kids at home. I had gone from NBC to becoming the communications director for Cartier Jewelers. I was in charge of their Latin American markets at the Caribbean, and I was everything that had to do with media, public relations, and advertising. After 6 years, my husband, who's an entrepreneur, he said, I think it's time, because we were young. We were,
Right.
and if we want to have kids, I think it's time. I say, okay, let's go, let's have kids, So after having my first son, I wanted to be home. So I kind of reinvented everything, and I started to continue my education from home. So I have a master's that I fulfill from home in meditation, and I study all forms of meditation. And then I continue to do counseling and studying human development and the power of thought. And I continue education on all of that. So
Wow.
as I was raising our sons, I was a very good observant. So with all of my degrees, I started my own business on, talking to people, not as a counselor, because I don't, do issues like psychological issues, but more as a way for them to understand that to achieve certain goals, you first have to know your talents, you have to know your real purpose, you have to have goals, daily goals, weekly goals. Every month you have to adapt those goals you have to put them down in writing to be able to be accountable and then adapt them as well. So I started doing that work with people, all the way from high school kids that didn't know what they wanted to study in college,
Right.
college kids. I've done college counseling as well, all the way to executives, top CEOs, women that wanted to go back to the workforce, or women that wanted to change careers, and entrepreneurs as well. So I was doing that work. And I said, when COVID hit and everything was kind of a relaxing moment, to take us back in time and stop for a moment. I said, you know what? I have developed all these strategies throughout my experience since I was a kid, all the way, to raising my sons and helping people professionally. I think it's time to put them in a book. So that's when I started writing, and
Right.
the title pretty much came pretty easy because I would see a lot of people that were lost. So
Mhm.
I said, we need to stop dragging through life,
Right.
and start living. And the way we start living is identifying our purpose. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be a huge purpose. You don't have to live in a mansion. You can live anywhere, but you can have a purpose from being, today I'm going to be the best person I can be to my neighbor, all
Mhm.
the way to I want to write a book. I
Mhm.
want to get a college degree. I
Mhm.
want to work doing X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, we have to be clear to understand what are our talents, because we can dream, but we have to know our talents to know how far we can take those dreams. So during COVID, I started writing the book. I
Right.
started, to share my strategies, to get there and to, because in the end, it's like we need to stop dragging, to start living, to find a purpose, to achieve our goals. But ultimately, what we need to do is to be happy,
Hold
you
that thought
know?
for 1 second. Hold that thought 1 second. Okay, I'm so sorry. I had
No worries.
I had knee surgery, so I had to take a water pill to drain that fluid off my knees. Okay, so we got
Understandable.
thank you. So we're gonna start back with this question. Okay, 1,
Yes.
2, 3. All that really sounds really good, and I like what you said and the reason for writing the book. My question is, you mentor, so to speak, with people who like these tool sets. Let's call it what it is. These tools to understand their purpose. My question here, as it relates to your book, as it relates to everything that you've done to master your destiny, what are some of the crippling factors that you notice with people having the inability to falter through these steps that you've done and based on your book? And then the second part of that is, what age brackets are you seeing the most difficulties with people trying to understand their purpose?
Well, the younger you are, the better you are.
Okay.
You're in a better position because when I work with the younger people, they can identify their talents really fast. They
Right.
are not wasting time because as you get older, you have not necessarily wasted. I don't want to call it wasted, but maybe you have derailed yourself for a few
Mhm.
years. So when I work with young people, they're very open and they're very easy. They catch things very easy, in
Right.
an easier way. So we work identifying talents. So that's why I started with the second question first, because I have worked with people all the way from their high school age, and I have worked with them all the way to the professional careers where they have achieved what they wanted. Then one of the the first question is that people, if they don't identify their purpose, if they don't identify their talent,
Right.
and if they don't have a set of goals, they can confuse things. They get confused along the way because the ultimate goal is to not only be a better human being, but also be happy. Because when you're happy in life, you achieve not only great things for yourself, but also for the people around you. You know, when you're happy, you can be a great person to the people around you. And I see a lot of people in top positions that are not happy because they have taken the different road that really has not necessarily put them in a place to use their talents correctly, achieve the goals, fulfill their purpose. And sometimes people confuse purpose with maybe I would have millions of dollars. Not
Well,
that's
well,
not
Jane,
gonna make you happy necessarily, you know.
well, Jane,
It's
this
like
is what I tell people, and I mean, you can put a rebuttal on this if you want to. You went to college. I went to college. Universities and colleges don't teach that skill set nor that mindset. School is designed to create a labor force. So with that being said, let me think how I want to put this. What needs to be put in place? Because we go to school, we're supposed to be the academic paralysis of higher education to get your goals. I get exactly what you're saying. These things and education is two different things, but the school basically says, this is what like you said, this is what you need to do. I want to be a millionaire. You got to go get that particular degree. You got to get married. You got to have children. This is the Brady Bunch life. And this is how men and women for years have conditioned themselves through the imagery of the media, which you've been in the media. This is how you need to be. You need to be the beautiful wife. You need to go home. You need to cook. You need to do this. What needs to change is what I'm saying to make your message resonate to the people.
I think that's a fantastic question. It's so funny because it's tied to something that my oldest son asked me this week. He goes, "So why did you write this book?" And I was thinking, and I said, I think I wrote it for you three, for my own sons,
Right?
Because the earlier you start, the better it is, you know. And when you are young, you know, and you are aware of who you are and the path and everything, it's easier to understand and to pretty much shut down the noise of everything around, you know. And you not necessarily have to, if you want to become a doctor, you have to go to college. But if you really want to be, one of the most needed careers is being like a good car mechanic, then you need to go and find that skill, you know. So you need to be aware of what you want to do. You need to be aware of what makes me happy, and you need to be aware of your talents and then use that to map your life, you know. Whether it's a ballet dancer, I want to be a ballet dancer the rest of my life. No, I did not want it to do that. I didn't want it to be on TV all of my life. I left to be the television industry late in my 20s because I didn't want it to be a slave to looking at myself and saying, oh, I need to look good. I need to be this. I need to look like this. I need to look like the one that's 10 years younger. I was aware of that. And a lot of people are addicted, you know, to that and they're not aware of things that are so important and crucial in life. So I told my son, I think I wrote it for you guys, you know, so you can have a guide of how to, you know, move and how to move through life, you know, and find out what you really want to do, because the ultimate goal is to be happy. Both my husband and I, we, you know, added that to our lives, and we kind of talked before getting married. But all of it's if you have a partner, you need to talk to that partner and figure out what you really want before you make a commitment, whether it's to live together or get married or whatever, or even more to have kids. Do you really want to have kids? A lot of people nowadays don't have kids. You have to be honest, about that. Because when you take, when you make it so funny, because it goes back to a lot of things that I watch and I enjoy. There's a timeline. When you make a break in that timeline and it's something that it's not good for you, you're ruining everything that you have good about yourself.
Right.
So when you're aware of who you are, how the kind of great person, everyone comes with talents.
Right.
Everyone comes with a purpose. When we are aware of that at a very young age, then if we break the timeline, we break it for something good.
You know what, Jan? This is something, before we wrap up, this is something that I realized in the last 4 years of doing my podcast. And that's a question that I usually ask people with every episode is, what's your purpose? And it's funny. It's almost like I shot them with a gun. They know what their job consists of. They know they go to work. They know their details. They know their humanly functions. Let's call it what it is. They know the humanly functions. But if I ask them, what's your purpose? They have no idea.
No idea.
It becomes it becomes almost like a poison drink. And then if I say, are you happy with your job? They can't really answer. They say no. But you know what they say? I like the money. I'm like, well, what's more important? Because if you quit your job now, if something happens to you on your job, I've seen this happen to a lot of my friends. Yeah. It's next man up. It's batter up. You forgot. But before we wrap up, how many people clearly waste their time not understanding? You see what I'm saying? How many really do that?
That's the reason I wrote the book, because the majority of people that I have met in my life, and I would say, I don't want to be a pessimist, but around 80% of the people, they don't know their purpose. And that's the most important thing in life. You need to find your purpose. You need to stop dragging so you can start living, that's the reason I wrote the book, because there's ways to do all of this to make you a happier person, because today we need happy people in the world. It's so needed. And the ultimate goal is to be happy, not to have material things, but to be happy. And whatever we decide to do with our career, that career needs to make you happy. That's what we need to do. And that's the reason I wrote the book.
How can the viewers reach out to you and get a copy of the book? And what's the name of the book?
It's called Stop Dragging, Start Living, Reclaim Your Purpose and Power. Okay. And on my website, it's very easy. It's janemorales.com. Jane, JaneMorales.com. And you can find the book there.
Dan, thank you.
And actually, I'm working on a course that it will go along with the book. So you can start reading the book, and then you can start doing the course that will go along with the book.
That sounds like a beautiful, beautiful kit for people to understand and get their purpose, because you can't move forward successfully without knowing your purpose. Thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.